The classes of DrDark are now in session. Follow the rules. It's a pretty simple statement. I don't know why exactly some people can't do this, especially if the rules are reasonable. Even as a child, I was pretty obedient. Not a day goes by without me thanking my parents for instilling that sense of obedience in me. Especially what happened with me and with the dancing man. The rules regarding this man were simple. No one knew exactly when he would appear, but it was always after midnight. He would rather look innocent, like a lonely man humming to himself and dancing in the late hours of the night. Rule number 1. Don't get in the hearing range of his humming. If you can hear faint humming coming from the dancing man, run as fast as you can in the opposite direction. He will leave you alone. His tune is intoxicating and lures you into a false sense of security, drawing you closer to him. Very few people have been known to escape this trance. Rule number 2. Once you get closer to him, he will ask you to dance. Do not say yes. I repeat, do not say yes. Getting within touching distance of him is practically suicide. If he is feeling particularly energetic, very rarely in occasions, he may just grab you even if you say no. Other times, he just walks away. Everyone in the town knew about him. Everyone followed the rules. It was Saturday night. I usually never partied or went out late into the night, but I had just gotten a new job and I needed to celebrate. I went to the local bar with my best friend Julie. We had practically grown up together. Julie was a very attractive woman, and she was proud of it. She was funny, outgoing, and extroverted, not to mention extremely reckless. The extreme opposite of me. And as they say, opposites attract. Anyway, I'm digressing. Julie was never one to follow the rules. We went to the beer tavern, which was a pretty old place, and we knew everyone there since we had grown up in this town. We partied and had the time of our lives. It was around 2 in the morning when we both finally left the bar. We both lived in the same neighborhood, so we both laughed and walked the way home. We were nearing our street when we saw him. He was wearing a black suit, a black top hat, and a red tie. At first we thought he was just another drunk dancing his way home, but the very sight of him sent chills down my spine. His face was obscured by his top hat, casting shadows over his face. I could hear vague humming coming from him, some creepy nursery rhyme. I knew who this was. Julie was already making her way towards him. "Julie, no!" I yelled him. It's him, the dancing man," I hissed. "Honey, that's just a myth. Tell me, when was the last time someone saw him?" Julie scoffed, rolling her eyes. She had a point. The last reported sighting of him was many years ago, but I still didn't want to take a chance. "Julie, we could die," I begged her. She snatched her arm out of my grasp. The man grew closer to us. He was tall, abnormally tall and thin. He continued dancing. My heart was beating somewhere in my throat. I backed away from him while making one last desperate attempt to get Julie away from him. She didn't. "Would you like to dance?" he asked her. His voice was deep, terrifying, but soft at the same time. It made my skin crawl. It was like a knife trying to saw through metal, like stones smashing and rolling against each other. Julie giggled and took his hand. That's it. There was nothing I could do now. I watched with bated breath as they started dancing. The man was now looking directly up at the sky. His head was bent at a very odd angle. His face still couldn't be seen. Julie was apparently way too drunk to find that creepy. They continued dancing, and my anxiety calmed down a little bit. Maybe this wasn't the dancing man after all. Maybe he really was a myth. I watched with a smile on my face as I heard Julie laugh when he twirled her. They danced for some time. I decided to go to Julie and tell her that we needed to go home. That's when I realized I couldn't move. My feet were glued to the ground. "Julie, I can't move," I screamed. That was when the dance started picking up pace. The man was moving fast, really fast. "Stop! Stop it!" Julie yelled. The man kept going faster and faster. He finally stopped looking at the sky and slowly lowered his face to face us. His eyes were huge, bulging, almost falling out of their sockets. His face was gaunt, the thinnest layer of pale, decaying skin covering his skull. Oh dear Lord, his smile. I will never forget his smile. It was like someone had taken a knife and stretched the corners of his mouth to make it look like he was smiling. It was stretched impossibly wide, covering almost the whole width of his face. His teeth were rotten and brown. Blood dripped down his face. He was a corpse in a suit. I screamed. They were faster and faster, until they were almost a blur, and I was stuck to my spot, unable to do anything, watching them dance, horrified. I heard Julie vomit, and then something hit my leg with astounding speed, and my knees buckled. As I fell, I heard the most horrible, blood-curdling scream I had ever heard in my life. It set my nerves on fire. I looked down to see what had hit me. It was an arm, Julie's arm, ripped clean from its socket. Julie was screaming at the top of her lungs as the man twirled her around, blood spraying in all directions like a garden sprinkler. "Don't scream, let me kiss you," he cooed softly. Without warning, he opened his mouth, impossibly wide, his rotten teeth jutting out. With an inhuman amount of speed, he clamped his mouth around her lips, cementing them shut. Julie let the most dreadful, guttural, maddening scream from the back of her throat that made the hairs on my back of my neck stand up. I still couldn't move. I watched, horrified, as he slowly ripped each limb from her body, slowly, painfully, piece by piece, all the while twirling her at the same brutal, sadistic velocity. It was the most horrible thing I had ever seen, and I couldn't look away. Each time, she would let out an agonizing, heart-wrenching scream that made every cell in my body burn. It was beyond disgusting, beyond horrible to watch your best friend get tortured so badly. Hearing her scream your name and then not being able to do anything about it. Something broke inside me that day. That dance destroyed me, and I know that I will never recover from it. He kept ripping her body apart. A circle of blood surrounded us. A lot of the blood was on me. The sun was just starting to rise when he started slowing down. It was still dark. Julie was still somehow alive. He twirled what was left of her with gradually decreasing velocity, with his hands firmly wrapped around her neck. I watched as the man ripped her head clean off of what remained a torso. He had stopped humming. He just stood there, admiring his work. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I was now face to face with just the shell of the girl who was there 4 hours ago. He bowed down to some imaginary audience only he could see. Then he swiftly turned on his heel and started dancing down the street. Within 5 minutes, I could see his blurred outline vanish into the horizon. The police ruled it off as a car accident. They too knew that what they were dealing with was beyond their control. Julie's death taught everyone a very important lesson. A lesson I will never forget. To just follow the rules. And whenever you see the dancing man, immediately turn around and run as fast as you can. Your attendance has been recorded. Make sure to follow me on social media on your way out. Have your own stories? Submit them on my subreddit. Tune into my stories anytime and anywhere by listening to my podcast. The links to everything is in the description below. Until next time, class dismissed.